For years, everyone thought Verizon had the best network, because they did. But now the best mobile network in the U.S. is T-Mobile. T-Mobile's network has the most advanced 5G, with more towers, and their signal reaches further than ever. So you can text and Insta talk and say, "You won't believe where I am."
T-Mobile has the best mobile network in the U.S. based on analysis by Ookla of speed test intelligence data 1H 2025. See T-Mobile.com/network.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. PrizePicks takes your weekend to a new level. We're talking easy stuff. You know what you're doing. More or less, like Saquon Barkley, more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Games with Patrick Mahomes, more or less than 2.5 passing touchdowns. You know what we're talking about. We're playing fantasy. We're playing DFS. Jump in the PrizePicks app. You will not regret it. It makes the weekend so much more fun, and it's really easy to do. Just download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right.
To the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Happy Thanksgiving here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew. Dude, watch your calories, Betz.
There's no calories on Thanksgiving, Kyle. Come on, everybody knows that's one of the unwritten rules of one of my favorite holidays of the year. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Man, I can't believe it's here, Kyle. The DFS Christmas, if you will, is here for us. I mean, this is the slate. Christmas on Thanksgiving. We have 3 games, and not just 3 games that are like, oh, cool, we have football on all day. These games are all like the best games of the week. So we were looking ahead to the Sunday main slate, just kind of getting a head start there. And I was like, oh my Lord, these games on Sunday look terrible. So all the good games are on Thanksgiving. So it should be an unbelievable slate. Really happy to break this one down today. And then on Friday, I get to hate watching the Eagles in primetime against the Bears. So it should be a great week of football. Excited to have you guys all along for the ride.
I think people don't realize the 3 games we have here, they're all at 48 plus points. You know, the Chiefs and Cowboys game was at 52.5 last I saw it. This is very different than some of the games we have previewed in the past. I went back through and looked at our show docs from the last 5 years. I mean, we were getting games with the Bears where it's like, ah, man, are we going to get like 40 points in this game? And the Lions, I can't wait for this conversation. Okay, so make sure you do this in whatever way you need to, in whatever way your uncle is trying to explain it to the rest of your family. They're like, hey, yeah, the Lions, they've always been on football. You know, they've always been on Thanksgiving. They're always there. It's how they do it. It's a tradition like any other. Like, you can explain how things have evolved, Uncle Ed, and you can explain to him, you could talk ball. So I want you to put Uncle Ed in his place. That's what I'm trying to give our listeners.
I did read your pace of play, which is, by the way, is up in the DFS pass. And I love that you made a couple references there. Like, I mean, it's Jerry and the boys and the afternoon on Thanksgiving. I mean, if that's not America, I mean, what is? So yeah, every like 4:30 is usually the kickoff for that time. I don't know what it is this week, but it's the afternoon. It's always the second game. And when I picture in the past what my Thanksgivings have been like at that part of the day, that is when the nap starts to feel like it's vital, and or we're going back for seconds after maybe a slice of pie or something. So at that point, you're loosening the belt, certainly 1 notch, maybe 2, and then getting ready for a nap. So it should be a great slate, man. Are you by the way, this is a really important question. Are you team sweatpants on Thanksgiving?
It is it does divide a lot of our nation.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest issues facing our country.
For years, I went no pants, and my family shunned me. They're like, this is straight to jail type of behavior. This is unhinged. This is not that helpful.
I'm just picturing you sitting at the table around your family, no pants. Hey, Mom, can you pass the gravy?
And my grandmother just doesn't care. Like as a kid, of course I did that. No, I'm not a sweatpants guy. Like I try to be respectful to my family. We're not like highbrow people, so I feel like they would be fine with it. But we do Thanksgiving at my parents' house, and I'm not going to dress up. I'm not the most formal person in the world, but pair of jeans.
So fancy.
Yeah, dude, watch out when Michael Scott gets in his jeans. Whoo, baby. Does it get better than that?
Nice jeans. Tell you what.
Yeah. So we'll preview these 3 games. We're going to try to go inside and out. And then at the very end, we will do a little battle royale. Betz and I will share lineups that we've made. You can copy the lineup if you want, if you want to split the pot with us. But we will go mano a mano. And a tradition unlike any other, just as Jim Nantz says it, is Betz and I, whoever wins this contest gets to buy the other person Chili's.
I mean, I've been prepping all year for this. This is the only DFS contest that matters to me this week, is the head-to-head between you and I for Chili's, which, I mean, come on, what's better than that?
Is Monica already there? Just like already like, I know you're going to win, honey. I'm already there. She's at the bar with the Don Julio.
I mean, we read your pace of play, so we know exactly who you're going to play.
That's true. That's
and I
very
was like,
true.
dude, Kyle is way off on this. So yeah, I know exactly how to beat you.
I did forget we were doing that for a second, and I sent you a sample lineup this morning. Like, hey, I kind of like this construction. I think some of these plays, you're like, oh, is that the optimal that you're looking at? I was like, oh no, I totally forgot. So I might have given away a couple, but we'll see. It is a fun little contest. Any quick foods before we get into this? Any foods you're looking forward to?
I mean, yes, all the foods. It's interesting. My family is a very like traditional foods on Thanksgiving type of situation. So we have the usual, right? The turkey, the stuffing. Somebody makes like a potato dish. We of course are going to have pumpkin pie, like all the staples. My grandma does make these unbelievable. They're like creamy potatoes. They're like half baked, but also like kind of scalloped. It's hard to describe. But she's made them for years. They are certainly part of the plate every Thanksgiving. And outside of that, man, we're pretty much just the classics here.
So Emma makes this cornbread casserole. It's this kind of like cream corn with like this hard bread cornbread. It's very good. I like that one a lot. But I'm looking forward to some pecan pie. That's what I want. I want 2 helpings of that during the Cowboys game.
I mean, that does sound nice. Is mom making the mashed potatoes this year again, or?
I haven't looked at the menu. We kind of have a little family text going, and I just assume that she's not, because if she did, no one would eat it. So
I feel so bad for your mom. Every
my
year.
mom's a great cook, but she's not good at one thing, and that's okay. It's okay to admit there's things like, I'm not the best golfer in the world. I can admit that.
Okay,
so
we all have
most people,
weaknesses. It's okay to
most
it's
people
okay
are
to
not. Most people are not great at that. But we're not going to review Week 12 too much. We're going to try to focus on this Thanksgiving slate. But I just need to say, our Discord had some really good discussions, and I gave some statistics about this past week. It was the highest scoring cash slate that we have seen in a very long time. Like, I was just going back over the last couple of years. The cash line in most double ups was 190. So if you're used to putting up like 170 points, you're like, oh, it's a good cash week. You were buried. Like, I put up 184 and I didn't hit the cash line. So just understand the context. It doesn't matter what you did the week before. It's a different context. The chalk smashed. If you played Jahmyr Gibbs, you smashed. I saw people that played Gibbs and did not cash. It was that type of week. But any quick thoughts on that before we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, just this year, it's a conversation we're going to have in the offseason, and like, how do we approach this differently moving forward? Because the chalk does seem to just be very good. And I think the projection systems are just getting stronger and stronger, and that's kind of the way things go when that happens. But even if you were excited about Gibbs this week, which honestly everybody was, nobody could have predicted that type of outcome, where not just the usage and the incredible long runs and all those things, but just the game environment was perfect for him, Amon-Ra, Wandale. Like, that game just went bonkers. Jameson, just along for the ride, just here for the vibes. Cardio out there with a nice fat goose egg. But yeah, the outcome was obviously, 90th percentile. So interesting slate. I played in small field. Mason Rudolph and scored 9 points at my quarterback and still almost won a tournament because I had some of the high, upside pieces around it. But yeah, it was a fun slate. So many fantasy points everywhere. Where when those slates happen, and you need, like, there are some lower scoring slates in general where like 180, 190 can win something. On this slate, like 200 was like a min cash in tournaments, right? Like,
dude, I had a Jameis lineup that put up 210, and I was feeling so good because Jameis, I think, was at like 4% in the tournament.
Yeah.
It's like, I have Jameis, I have Wandale, I have Gibbs, 210. Didn't matter.
Yeah. You needed 230, 240 to even like get close to the top of the leaderboard and some stuff. So when that happens and you don't have perfection in your lineup, it's just hard to win. And I don't know, it seems like there's like 2 or 3 slates a year where that happens, and this past weekend was absolutely one of those.
Yeah, it was a crazy week. We did have some listeners and DFS Pest members that won big. I think the crazier part was looking at people's just scores, just through the roof. Like this one from Ryan, he won first place in the huddle. It was a single entry, put up 256.
That's insane.
Dude, that is a crazy score. I also, from our Discord, Salad Fork said, thanks for the advice to enter your cash lineup into a tournament every single week. So we've talked about that before. It's like, I never want to look back at my cash lineup and be like, why did I not enter that in? So just throw it out there in one. He says, my cash lineup this week scored 242, and it tied for second in the 10K fair catch. I won $325. The Chili's Triple Dipper is calling my name.
Oh, brother. You can get more than that. You can get like 6 triple dippers. You could buy the restaurant. Yeah, no, it was a really fun week in Discord. A lot of people having success there, and it's always fun to see. I really do love that part of this where Sunday night we find out, yes or no, did you win or not? And there's always a handful of people that really, really have good weeks, and that's always fun to see. So congratulations to everybody that had a good week. But Kyle, it's time for Thanksgiving, the slate, the 3-game slate. Somebody's going to win a bunch this week. I can't wait.
State of the main slate.
So we have 3 games that we get to work with. One starting, I don't know like what your family schedule is, but for me, I'll probably have like an early lunch and then probably do a second, kind of early lunch and then maybe a dinner and then my pecan pie portion of my life. So it is nice. I like the rhythm of what we're doing. But what's crazy about these 3 games is that the totals are so much higher. They're the 3 highest of the week. So we have the Lions and Packers first game. That one's sitting at 48.5. Then we have the Chiefs and Cowboys, the highest total of the week at 52.5. And then in the nightcap at 8:20 Eastern time, the Ravens are hosting the Bengals, and the Ravens have the highest implied point total at 29.3 of the entire week. So these are the environments. Usually we have 1. Now we have 3 that we can choose from, and I think you could really take an angle on all 3 of them of, hey, this game's at Ford Field, so here's what Lions games do. Oh, this game's at Jerry's World in Dallas, and here's what games do there. Oh, wait, it's the Bengals defense. They're the worst maybe of all time. Let's go in that game. So you could convince me of almost anything this week, except I'll find a player later that I won't like, but I mean, pretty much everybody's in play.
It's so true, man. I was, most slates, when we look at kind of just like top to bottom, higher level view on some stuff, it's like, okay, where are the best game environments to attack? Okay, these all are pretty much the same from a total standpoint. Pricing, how does it shake out? Is it easy to fit guys? Is it difficult? It feels very easy to jam in the guys you want on this slate. Like we were talking before we started recording a quarterback, it's like, it's not that much to get up from Goff to Mahomes. And, when you compare like the ceiling case for some of these guys compared to the price difference on the sites, it feels like you can kind of do what you want, which I'm really interested to see what that does in roster percentages. But yeah, it does kind of feel like a pretty loosely priced slate if you're willing to kind of dip your toes into some of this cheaper, the cheaper viable plays. Like the Packers are kind of cheap that you can fit in. We'll talk about Jameson Williams. Like there's definitely some plays that are cheap that allow you to do what you want on the slate, which makes it both kind of like a pick'em, which sometimes people don't like, but I enjoy that. Makes it fun to build, and that appeals to a lot of people that are playing this slate. So I do think it's kind of a loosely priced slate that you can do what you want. I will say these slates always feel like you have to have exposure to everything, right? Like you want to have like a little bit in the first game and some in the second game, and you gotta have the late night hammer. But if you can identify the game, if there is one, that like really goes off and shoots out, like sometimes onslaughting that and getting 4, 5, 6 pieces from that and hoping the other games are just duds is also a way to build on this slate. So we'll talk about some different ideas on how to do that, but I will say higher level view. I think a lot of people, when they have these short slates, really just want to jam in like a couple from each game just to have their exposure spread out. Sometimes onslaughting is actually my preferred way to build on this slate, and I have a couple ideas on how to do that.
Yeah, the feeling that you get is you start building a roster and you're telling yourself a story of, let's say, the Chiefs put up, 30 points. They hit their implied total, they're on the road to the Cowboys, and you're like, okay, well, obviously I need somebody on the Cowboys side to bring it back with. And you start building your lineup that way, and you look like, man, but the Lions are in a good spot. Or, man, there's some cheap Packers wide receivers like Dobbs and Watson are priced very, very well. I want to go there. But, man, the Ravens have the highest implied total. Like, you start looking around, and you want a piece of every single game, and what you end up doing is just eating into everybody else's roster percentages, where the people that look at the Chiefs and say, hey, I'm adding Worthy, or I'm adding Hollywood Brown, or whoever it is, like you're adding an extra player in with the Chiefs, you end up gaining on those other lineups that end up just having a chalky Romeo Dobbs or a chalky, Christian Watson. I'm still trying to get my head around what the field's going to do at wide receiver, because you mentioned it, Jameson, Dobbs, and Watson in that first game are essentially the same price. And they all fit very well in projectable playing time from that 4K range. Same thing with Andre Yoshivas in the evening game. It's like, okay, I can project you for a lot of playing time. You're 4,200, like you make a ton of sense. So instead of just spreading yourself out, what Betz and I would say is to pick a game, stack around that game, and you're trying to kind of go overweight the field. It's kind of like what we do in Showdown, where it's like, it's not great to have a 3v3 lineup in Showdown, but when you have 4-2 or 5-1 builds, you end up getting different than the rest of the field.
Yeah, for sure. And similar to Showdown, on these smaller slates, you absolutely can leave money on the table. And in large field contests where you're trying to minimize how often your lineup is going to be duplicated by people you're playing against, I actually kind of prefer that way to build. Like, it feels very uncomfortable to leave $700-800 on the table, because on a normal, 12, 10 game slate, whatever it is on Sundays, generally speaking, it's optimal to spend close to your full salary cap that you have on the sites. On these shorter slates, it is viable to leave money on the table, and not a lot of people do that. It feels very uncomfortable, but that is one other way to also get unique from a roster build standpoint.
This also, last thing I'll say, and then we'll talk about the salary standouts, is late swap is really fun on Thanksgiving. If you can figure out and look at the early games, so the Lions and Packers, and you can see some of the roster percentages in the way that they come out. So in your app, you can sort by player ownership. You can go, man, okay, so Jahmyr Gibbs is being played by 40% of the field or something like that. You can start to do the math and look at the other running back spots and go, okay, well, Derrick Henry's he's expensive, and there's really nobody else on this slate that like is in that same price range that people are going to play. Same thing with, Chase Brown is in the late window. So you can start to play that game. So I would say late swap is super important. We'll talk about that, I would say, when we get to the Ravens and Bengals game and talk about some pieces if you're behind or if you're ahead, what could be a little bit chalkier. But Betz and I don't really talk about this from a floor cash perspective, okay? There's just less optimal plays because there's only 6 teams to work with, as opposed to when you and I are playing a 10-game slate, we're looking at, 20 teams, and we're able to look and find some other, pricing discrepancies. We also don't have any free squares as of this recording, where it's like, okay, I mean, Andre Yoshivas is like the easiest to say from a playing time, but at 4,200, he's not exactly like cheap. So there's no free squares for us to say like, oh, well, you got to jam this guy in. There is a running back that I can't wait to talk about that is cheaper, and has been getting a good workload. So we'll talk about that. But this is a game theory thing. We're playing more tournament contests, right?
Yep, definitely. I love that point about late swap. A lot of people, and I mean, if this is your style, like, I get it. It's Thanksgiving. We all have family and stuff like that. A lot of people will just set their lineup, at noon or whatever, and just kind of log out for the day. There is an edge in late swap for sure, especially because by the time you get to the second and third games, in your contest, because you can look at roster percentages that have already locked, exactly what your opponents have done. And if the contrarian pieces in your lineup are hitting, you can get on to like the best plays late, Derrick Henry and Jamar Chase and those kind of guys. And if your lineup is behind, maybe get off of Jamar Chase. Those kind of examples where it's like, hey, I know the field's going to do this. Just remember to kind of check in throughout the day on those roster percentages and adjust accordingly. But I love this slate. There's so much game theory to it too, like you talked about. So let's get into it here and break it down.
Traditions are a game changer. Traditions have the power to turn a simple moment into a memory. Bring a whole city together. And they're even what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way. Starting with whole corn kernels. No artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. We craft our chips for whatever your tradition is. Tostitos. Tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
One day only Thanksgiving Day deals are coming to Lowe's.com. Plus, members get early access to online Black Friday doorbuster deals on gifting favorites, like the still trending Cobalt Mini Toolbox for just $14.98. Don't miss up to 50% off for one day only at Lowe's.com. We help, you save. Valid 11/27 only on Lowe's.com. Member only doorbusters and midnight Eastern. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change while supplies last.
Salary standouts.
So we have all the salaries on our website in the DFS Pass if you want to sort by fantasy points per dropback, or you're looking at certain people's rush attempts or how they're performing under pressure. We have all of that in the DFS Pass. But at quarterback, Lamar is the most expensive, and he's crushing if you just look from a season-long standpoint. The last couple of weeks have been really tough to watch. Like, we picked the Ravens for our Survivor team, and in the first half, I was like, no. This team cannot lose to the Jets at home. So Lamar's the most expensive, $6,800. Then it's Mahomes at $6,500. I think Mahomes, in my opinion, will be the most expensive by far, or the most popular by far. Then it's Dak at $6,300. Burrow, which I am very curious to see what people do with Burrow at $6,000. Goff, and then Love. So any initial takes at quarterback?
It's pretty evenly priced, right? Like, it's not that different.
They're not expensive.
Right. There's no expensive quarterbacks because we're used to Lamar being like an 8K kind of guy. And, all these guys are within a few $100 of each other. So there's not that much difference from, I like the ceiling case for Lamar. I know he hasn't been running recently, but like historically can go out and give you 35 points. And like, no disrespect to Jared Goff, but those outcomes are far less likely. He's only $1,000 difference, right? It's like these guys are so tightly priced that, to me, I'm not using quarterback salary to like dictate how I build my lineup. I'm more leaning into just how I see the slate going and the stacks I want to play and that sort of thing. It like I said, it's pretty loosely priced.
Yeah, and you don't have to make those type of decisions where, remember a couple years ago, it was like nobody was playing Mac Jones. He was like at the nightcap game for Thursday night, and it's like Mac Jones was like 5,200 or something. And he was so different than the rest of the field, and yet he ended up being in the optimal. So here, everybody's condensed. I'm going to keep my pool pretty tight, where I'm just going to pick two quarterbacks and roll with those in the contest that I'm not going to play. I don't love to say, I'm going to play every single combination. I'm not going to be a 150 max guy. Maybe that's you now. I know you're an opto bro, so maybe you're one of those dudes.
I have been known to dabble in the 150s. No, I think for this one, I'll probably play like 3 to 6 tournament teams, and like you said, just kind of keep it a little bit more tightly priced. I don't know that I'll be around to like, work the optimizer for late swap and stuff, so I'll probably just do like 3 to 6 hand builds.
At running back, Jahmyr Gibbs is $8,800, so it's him, and then Henry's at $7,300. That is a giant $1,500 gap. I do think Henry is in the best spot if you're just looking at pure matchup against the Bengals at home as a touchdown favorite. I hear it's getting colder as well. So it's easy for me to look at building my lineup and say, man, I really want to have Derrick Henry in there, especially as that late hammer. Like, that's going to be really fun if you're watching the night game. You just see Derrick Henry go off for 102. So those are kind of the top plays. Josh Jacobs, I know he's returning from an ankle injury. It's not a great matchup against the Lions. knee injury. Apologies to his knee and his ankle. I disrespected them both. Do you think they'll ease him back in? Because Emmanuel Wilson looked obviously great this past week.
Yeah, it's tough to know. I mean, he talked before this past week's game and said, like, if I have to miss one, I will, but I'm not missing two. So we're all assuming he will play. We'll get final word, of course, tomorrow. But I do think it's potentially pretty likely that you see a little bit more Emmanuel Wilson than you otherwise would have. That's how I'm approaching it. So from a tournament perspective, I think you'll get pretty low roster percentage on Josh Jacobs, but I do have question marks about the health, and we'll talk about the matchup here in a bit. Definitely not the easiest spot in the world.
All right, Chase Brown and Javonte Williams are at an interesting price point for being underdogs. So, we'll talk about them more in the game. But I think Kareem Hunt is not a sentence that I thought I would say. That Kareem Hunt looks like a really good points per dollar play at 5,300. He had 30 carries this past week. So I don't know what he's telling Andy Reid in the meetings, but they trust him. And the Cowboys have been a team that you can run on all year long. He's also their red zone guy, inside the 5 guy. So I'm just circling Kareem Hunt as points per dollar wise. He's going to work in a lot of lineups.
Yes and no, because Pacheco will be back this week. And yeah, the guy that somehow remember he was getting everything in the playoffs a couple years ago? And now he's just kind of like faded into nothing. I do think Kareem Hunt will lead the backfield. So I agree with you there. And he certainly has had all of the goal line work, even when Pacheco was healthy. So if you're counting on just like one of these guys falls in the end zone twice, it's certainly Kareem Hunt. But I think just chasing last week, which was like nobody could have seen that coming from Kareem Hunt at this stage of his career. I'm hesitant to buy into that repeating. And also, this Cowboys run defense has kind of quietly been pretty good. Now they played a dysfunctional Eagles run game and the Raiders since they had the trade. So, whatever. But the Chiefs also haven't really had a run game to speak of for most of the season. So if the field is going to flock to Kareem Hunt because of the price tag, which I do understand, I will probably come in underweight.
A 38-year-old Kareem Hunt that doesn't do it for you?
When I'm sitting down with what are you having? Pecan pie?
Pecan pie.
Oh, pecan pie. That's how you say it down there. We'll be having pumpkin at our house. When I sit down to have that, I'd rather not my afternoon happiness be on a 48-year-old Kareem Hunt.
At wide receiver, Jamar Chase is $8,000, and he's appropriately priced. Did you see what he did last year against the Ravens? 44
both games, right? He went off.
Yeah, it was wild stuff. I want to make sure I get the number right, but it was 44.3 and 58.4 DK points in those two games.
Oh, man, that Thursday night game was so fun. Remember that showdown slate last year?
So he's the most expensive wide receiver, and then it's Amon-Ra at 7,800, Rashee Rice at 7,500. George Pickens is finally more expensive than CeeDee Lamb. He's at 7K, and Lamb is at 6,900. Those 5 wide receivers are incredible, and it's awesome that we get to work with that on the slate. I really want to jam in at least 2 in my lineup. Like, I just look across the game environments and the way that I'm stacking up. It's like, I really want at least 2 of them. But what's going to happen is you're going to build your lineup like, oh my God, I don't have Amon-Ra in my lineup. Oh my gosh, I didn't fit Chase in my lineup. Like, it is terrifying on this build. You should be uncomfortable, and we'll talk about this, but lots of good wide receivers on this slate. Zay Flowers basically hangs out in the exact same range over and over and over again. He gets you 11 points and does nothing else. He's annoying. And then there's this giant gap. There's nobody in the 5K range. Literally, there are no wide receivers priced there. And then it's this Jameson Williams, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs worthy tier that is very intriguing to me. I think one of those dudes, if you guessed that right, will be the key to the slate.
I think a lot of builds are going to have at least one in that range, Jameson to worthy, maybe 2, and then a stud wide receiver is how I think most builds are going to go. So if you did want to say, hey, I'm going to get a little bit different and kind of go with this more like balanced approach, not that there's guys in the 5K range, but like, one of the Cowboys and then like Zay, like that is a really unique way to build on this slate. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but I think just thinking through like what the slate pricing kind of forces you onto, it's going to be very much like pick a stud or 2 and then drop down to 4K and build from there.
Yeah, and there's obviously some interesting names as you drop down even further. Rashad Bateman, my boy, at 3,800. Hollywood Brown, Matthew Golden, like all these guys that have a similar archetype of, are you going to catch a long touchdown? And we'll kind of see where that goes. Yeah, I think wide receiver is really interesting. You're going to have to pay some money here. This is where you're going to spend your salary. At tight end, we don't have Trey McBride for the first time in weeks to be able to just click right away and just say, okay, I don't have to worry about tight end anymore. It's Jake Ferguson at 5,100, Travis Kelce at 5,000, and then a massive jump down to Mark Andrews at 3,600. We got to talk about our boy Marky Mark because the Bengals are on pace to allow the most fantasy points of all time to the position. So, do you think he'll get clicked a lot at that price point and just saying, hey, tight end's it's not going to make or break me?
Yeah, I think so. And I can't really fault it because at this point, I kind of think the Bengals' whole like defense against tight ends thing, it might just be a bit. And they are leaning into it at an insane rate. I felt like every time we looked up on Sunday, Hunter Henry was doing something incredible. And then Austin Hooper was popping up for a 15-yard catch. You know, it's just like they're just bleeding points to every tight end they face. So, yeah, I think Andrews, like, if you are playing cash on the slate, makes a ton of sense, just the matchup and the salary. I think he'll be very popular. He has been very touchdown reliant, so there are ways where it doesn't work, but yeah, this is the matchup for all the tight ends.
And I got to give some love again. I don't know why I keep coming back to him, but Brock Wright, man. Dude, he's cheap. He plays all the time. This is the type of slate that we need him on.
He did not practice Monday, so we need to monitor.
I didn't either, though.
Nobody did. You got to monitor Brock Wright's practice status ahead of Thursday. It's literally the key to the slate. I mean, come on, Kyle.
It unlocks everything at 2,800. The Bengals tight ends are also cheap. They will cannibalize each other. And I could see somebody saying, hey, I just went Bengals double stacks, and instead of Yoshivas, I went Gesicki. And they just print.
I mean,
so
you know where I went to school.
Yeah, I did. Defense, not expensive at all. They're all kind of clumped together. You're probably not playing the Bengals at 2,200 anyways. But the Lions, for being the DST1 on the slate at 3,200, are cheap, man. It's cheap. It's like, it's not a big deal to go that direction. The Ravens at 3,000, also in a great spot, and they played better a lot recently. So any quick thoughts on defense before we move forward?
Nothing in particular in terms of like takes on these teams as plays, but just friendly reminder on this short slate where like optimally on a main slate, normally we're trying to avoid playing guys against our defense. Because it's a shorter slate, you can get weird. Like if one quarterback throws a pick six and then the quarterback goes off, that defense can still be in the optimal. So if you are using an optimizer, don't use that rule to limit guys against your defense necessarily.
Nice.
Because weird stuff can happen on these slates where, you know, you just get the one defense that has the pick six or something. They're probably going to be optimal. So definitely leave your mind open to some weird combos here.
Yeah, I literally will not put any rules if I'm looking at like how I'm building my lineups. I think the top two defenses are the top two defenses to pick, and they're not expensive enough. They should be 4,000. Then it would be a conversation for me to say, do I really play the Ravens? But now it's like, I don't care. It doesn't really matter. Let's talk about these games.
Stack Attack.
We are going to talk first about Green Bay at Detroit. Right now, the Lions are 2.5-point home favorites. The over-under is at 48.5. And this is huge for the NFC North because these teams are looking at the Bears' behinds. And they're just saying, hey, I didn't know this was possible for Chicago to be in first place. So it's an important game. And we've looked at Lions games all years and say, if it's at Ford Field, we want to play them there. They've averaged 52 combined points per game. And when Detroit wins, they blow teams out their first in average margin of victory. The spread says this is close. These teams played in week 1, and Green Bay absolutely shut them down. I'm looking at the numbers right here. The Lions ran for 46 yards on the ground on 22 carries. It was just awful. It was their fewest total yards of the season. So Green Bay, although like when I look at their offense, it's like, oh man, this isn't as exciting as it could be in other spots. Like, I think Green Bay is in a spot where they can easily win this game, and I think the spread is totally fine. Like if it was, -3, I would take Green Bay in the point. So I like the spread. It makes a lot of sense. How are you taking this game?
I mean, whenever you say about the spread, it's a printing press over here, Kyle. You're the expert. You're the expert in the industry on these sides and totals. Yeah, I will say, like, I feel like we're going to get a lot of recency bias with the Lions because what we just saw on DFS a couple of days ago, like you needed the Lions. You had to have Jahmyr Gibbs. You had to have Amon-Ra to do a lot of things in DFS and win money. And I feel like a lot of people are going to copy and paste. I'm not saying that is necessarily wrong, but I will say Jahmyr Gibbs is coming off maybe his best game ever and maybe the best game he will ever have. Like 15 carries for over 200 yards rushing and just ripping off long play after long play. He is going to be very, very popular. Again, not saying that's wrong. And then Amon-Ra also will be popular. And it's just one of those things that I just want to think about, like, do I want to necessarily maybe not fade both, but like come in underweight that duo and just get early information on the slate for tournaments and say, hey, if the Lions happen to fail, you know exactly kind of what the field did and you know how to pivot around it. That's probably how I'm initially going to approach it, because when I look at the matchup and the defense, like, you know, the Packers are leading the NFL in yards per pass attempt allowed. Goff historically at home has been very, very good. We know that's the deal. But also just Goff under pressure historically has not been great. The Packers certainly can do that. And I feel like stylistically it doesn't match up as the cleanest spot for Jared Goff. So if the field is going to just assume Lions at home, they will run this up and they will win and run away with it, my personal approach in tournaments is probably going to be coming in underweight and literally be terrified the entire time.
Yes, the way that I'm approaching this game is I'm assuming it hits the under. I know it has the lowest total, but I think both these defenses are solid. I think that the Packers, what they want to do is they want to run the ball, and they really want to do that to kind of milk the clock in the second half of games. They're second in second half rush rate. They're eighth in neutral rush rate. I just don't know if they're going to be able to be as effective as they want to be. I think my favorite aspect of this game is using the Packers passing game and approaching this as I'm double stacking Jordan Love, who I don't think will get clicked a lot, and then picking one piece on the Lions side, whether that's J-Mo or somebody else, or Gibbs, it's fine, and approaching it that way. I know that he goosed last week, but I don't care what happened last week because he was on the field, he was running all the routes. I think J-Mo is a good play. I do think on this type of slate, though, he will get clicked a ton because you don't want to be left in the dust at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern time, and the rest of the time you're trying to play catch up because you didn't click a guy who is way too cheap for his upside. So that's really the issue in this game is the cheaper wide receivers. How does the field handle them? If you guess that right, then you get ahead of everyone else and you get that early information.
For sure. And I will say, doesn't it feel so obvious on Jameson Williams? Where it's like,
so obvious, man. It could not be clearer to everyone on the planet.
I mean, the first player I looked at when I logged in, I was like, oh, J-Mo is stupid cheap. Of course he'll be in my lineup. So I'm not saying don't play him. I'm just saying I think he will be very popular.
I can't remember if I put him in our lineup.
We'll find out soon. And to your point, he did run a route on every dropback except for one last week. So the route rate was unbelievable. In the 3 games prior to this past weekend's goose egg, 6+ targets in 3 straight. We know the targets for route run for these guys are going to go up with Laporte off the field. So I'm not saying they're bad chalk. I'm just saying if you wanted one way to get leverage on the slate, underweight Lions is approach I will probably take. On Amon-Ra, of the expensive guys, I think he's my least favorite on the slate, which sounds so dirty to say because I love him. But Jeff Hafley has actually done a really good job against St. Brown in his career. He's faced him 3 times. He's been the DC of the Packers. His stat lines are 7-56-1, which is obviously a good game, but nothing crazy. And then 5 for 43 and 0, and 4 for 45 and 0. So just kind of thinking like, do I think he's more likely to access the ceiling here compared to Jamar Chase or Rashee Rice or, you know, one of the Cowboys? I think I prefer to spend up on the other studs here personally. So I will be coming in underweight in general on Lions. And like I said, probably being terrified the entire time.
Yeah, I had the same thing when I wrote up Amon-Ra. Just the Packers have been good against slot wide receivers. The way that they've been targeting Gibbs, I mean, I looked it up. Since Campbell started calling the plays, he's been targeted more frequently on a per route basis than any other player in football. 38%. It's not like a running back. This is a wide receiver to them, and that's the way they've been doing that. So I probably will have more Gibbs than Amon-Ra. I'll be fine with J-Mo where he's at. I love Brock Wright as a random play just because he's fun. And then on the Packers side, I wish Tucker Kraft was playing here because he's been insane against man coverage all year long. The Lions run man coverage at the highest rate of any other team, but obviously he's not here. It really comes down to Dobbs and Watson. So could you see yourself playing a Love double stack with Dobbs and Watson?
Yeah, and I actually kind of like this spot for Jordan Love. I mean, we just saw Jameis Winston go berserk in the secondary. Now, they are going to get some guys back from injury and kind of get over that hump, but still, they're giving up a ton of explosive plays, the Lions are in the pass game. When I think about Jordan Love, like, he's such a boom-bust type of fantasy guy, right? Like, he either has just mind-numbing mistakes and he puts up like 8 points, or he throws for 275 and 3, and all of a sudden he's what you needed on the slate, and he is cheap, so you can stack him pretty cheaply with the double stack of Christian Watson, who I actually love on the slate, and Romeo Dobbs. I think Romeo Dobbs is one of those guys that when you sit down to make a lineup, you're like, I don't want to play Romeo Dobbs, but at his price, 4 to 5 catches and a touchdown is probably optimal. So you're not asking him to really do a ton. So that's why I like the Jordan Love stacks, just because they're cheap. I'm not messing around with the Golden stuff or Dontavian Wicks, but it's just like, these are the guys that I trust to be on the field the most and that have earned targets. Christian Watson, like, we talk about that 4 to 6 week kind of period of ramp up in playing time and usage when they come back from ACL. We have actually seen that happen 3 straight weeks. His route rate is up. His target shares are 11%, 19%, 32% this past week. He's getting downfield looks. Detroit has allowed the 5th most 20-plus yard catches in the league. So to me, this is a Christian Watson spot. And if JMO is going to be the easy click in that range, I personally would love to pivot to one of the Packers guys.
All right, can I give you one fun dart throw?
Which team?
It's on the Lions.
Is it Tesla?
It is Tesla.
Because Khalif Raymond's hurt.
Khalif Raymond, who is a Georgia boy, went to high school basically 10 minutes from where I'm at. He's probably not playing. And since Sam Laporte has been out the last 2 weeks, the Lions have used 3+ wide receivers on the field on 75% of Goff dropbacks. That's the second highest in the NFL. So in other words, Tesla, if Raymond's out, I expect Tesla to be a near every down player when they drop back. He's $3K. Just throwing it out there as if you want to get a fun roster construction and you're using this game, it's just a fun play. Really, you need a touch. I mean, he had the touchdown in week 1. Who could forget? That happened with only 55 seconds left in the game. I had to throw that in there.
And that was a sick catch, too, when that happened.
Yeah, it didn't matter to the game. They were already killing him. But I think this is tough. Like I said, it's a really good line. I'm playing it as if it's an under. If it's -2.5, I will take the Lions. But if it's 3, I'll take the Packers.
I like the under in this game as well. And I did want to highlight real quick before we move off this game, if you are looking for the tight end on the Packers, Luke Musgrave is actually losing playing time to John Fitzpatrick. Truthfully, I'm not even sure who that is. But his route rate has declined in 3 straight games since he came back, Luke Musgrave. Or not since he came back, but since he's been the guy without Tucker Kraft, I should say. Meanwhile, Fitzpatrick's route rate has gone up 3 straight games. So if you're looking for a large field dart, to me, it would be Fitzpatrick over Musgrave.
Yeah, don't disrespect John Fitzpatrick. Also a Georgia boy. Went to, University of Georgia, Marist High School. Come on, man.
Did he go there?
I mean, yeah.
How old is he? When did he graduate?
He's like 20. He's 25.
Okay. Well, I never heard of him until...
Mostly a blocking tight end.
Yeah. But he could be what you need, Kyle.
He could be everybody's the key to this slate. That's the best part about Thanksgiving. All of them are the key. Next game we're going to talk about is the Chiefs at the Cowboys. The Chiefs are 3.5-point road favorites. The over-under's been 51.5. I'm seeing some 52s. It's nice. And it's nice to see the Cowboys, our Cowboys, still my boys, obviously.
Love that
I know
team.
You abandoned them. Yeah, they took 21 points. They got punched in the gut. And then they turned around and they Hadoukened your Eagles with 24 straight points.
I told you it was going to happen, Kyle. I told you. The Eagles, they turtle up when they have a lead. They think, Vic Fangio's defense, they'll save us. It's no big deal. We have the best defense in the league. It finally caught up to them, and I actually kind of hope it changes the approach. We'll see on Friday, but they deserve that loss. They played terrible in the second half.
Yeah, so you like that there's some pain that's involved.
I mean, I'd rather them lose now than January.
Dude, January. That sounds nice. I've never been there, really.
I've never watched football in January.
The only time that's really happened in my lifetime, it was really, really painful in 2016. I've kind of blocked it out in my mind, but it was really painful. Historically painful, some would say. So in this game, we like the Chiefs because you get an elevated pass rate. They're number one pass rate over expectation, number one neutral pass rate, and number one in first half pass rate. So they come out guns blazing with Mahomes. I do think the way that Dallas plays their defense, it sets up well. They have the highest rate of cover 2 and cover 3 shells. And I looked at what they've been doing the last 2 weeks. It's kind of hard to look at the Raiders and say, like, here's a blueprint for success because they played the Raiders 2 weeks ago, or the Eagles. They started using more cover 4 and cover 6, kind of these cloud coverages. Don't beat us deep. If they're going to do that against Patrick Mahomes, that's not a good recipe for success. You're going to get a lot of underneath stuff with Kelsey and with Rice, and you're going to end up moving the chains. Mahomes, to me, is easily the best quarterback on the slate, and it's very easy to figure out where you go with this. If you want to play Rashee Rice, who's coming off a career-high 141 receiving yards, you just go there. Mahomes, Rice, you can figure out the rest. That's like the easiest part of this game. I think beyond that, I'm trying to figure out how the Cowboys are interacting with the Chiefs, because it's been Pickens. Pickens has been awesome. So how do you like attacking this game?
Yeah, real quick on Rashee Rice. I just want to make sure people track the injury report this week for KC. It was weird. Like, the broadcast mentioned he had a hamstring issue at the end of that game, but he seemed to kind of just like voluntarily go down. Like, he didn't pull up and grab his hamstring. So I don't know the severity here, but he was limited Monday. Just make sure you're tracking that. And on him real quick, it's so crazy, his usage, man. He already has 9 targets inside the 10-yard line. Remember, he's only played like a month. That's tied for 4th in the league. So you're not just getting the volume, you're getting the high value touches too close to the goal line. So I do love Rice if he's healthy. And then on the running backs, like we talked about, the Cowboys, again, matchups matter. They played the Raiders, who can't run the ball, and they played the Eagles, who shockingly can't run the ball. Not surprisingly, the run defense looked great. The Chiefs all year have struggled to run the ball. They had one great rushing performance from Kareem Hunt. Otherwise, it's been Mahomes as the lead runner. The run game has struggled. So if the field, like I said at the start of the show, wants to kind of pile into Kareem Hunt, that's for me a fade, and I'll hope for the best. So I'm attacking the Chiefs side through Mahomes. I think it just sets up very well for him. We saw what Jalen Hurts did last week, and Eagles' pass game had looked inept for weeks in a row. So I do love Mahomes here. On the Cowboys side, I'm so interested to see what the field does with CD versus Pickens. I put out a poll on Twitter asking people, who would you rather have rest of the season for fantasy, CD Lamb or George Pickens? Which, of course, 2 months ago would have been a silly question to ask. Everybody would have said CD Lamb. 62% of people said George Pickens. So because they're the same price, if that's how the field will approach it, I'm just going to close my eyes and say at some point soon, CD Lamb is going to have a ceiling performance. Pickens is coming off an insane stretch, but every wide receiver in the NFL has a down week sooner than later. And if we're going to just copy and paste box scores from the last couple of weeks, for me, I will be leaning more into CD Lamb and coming in underweight on George Pickens.
I don't expect the field to play them together. I think they're too expensive to do that on this slate. And I almost hate that I'm on the same thing, but I know that my approach a lot of time is to kind of, in pickleball bets, we call this wrong footing somebody, where...
Gosh, you are such a nerd.
Dude, it's when they're coming up to the net and you get to put them on their off foot. And I think that's what people are doing. They're coming up confident in George Pickens, where I'm going to, shake things up.
Did you do that to me when we played?
Dude, I did more than that.
It was ugly. It was a bloodbath.
So, yeah, I do like CeeDee Lamb a lot in the spot. I think you'll get a lot of underneath stuff. Kansas City is allowing the highest adjusted completion percentage of any team in the NFL. Okay. Their second highest percentage of yak, and Dak's been really, really good on the season, number 1 in adjusted completion percentage. So I like CD a lot in the spot. I think Jake Ferguson's a fine play in the mix if you want to double stack Dak. Any interest in Javonte?
Yeah, I think he's a really interesting play where it's like, I'm either going to play Gibbs or you'll see lineups that have both Gibbs and Derrick Henry. Again, not saying it's bad. That's just what the field will do. And Javonte's kind of in no man's land pricing wise, where the box scores haven't been great recently. And those other guys are on the slate, so they look way more intriguing. But the role is still there. I mean, he's seen 23 total opportunities in back-to-back games. with 9 carries in the red zone in that sample. So if the touchdowns just happen to go to Javonte, I think he's a really good leverage play on this slate. And one guy that I think will get lost in the shuffle this week.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching him too. Is like, I think he's sneaky. I think he's sneaky leverage on Kareem Hunt. Like, if the Chiefs are battling back, I don't think we're looking at Hunt as like a must play. I'm looking at this game as if the Chiefs get the lead, if the Cowboys team falters, then if you wanted to play Hunt and maybe even get out of this game, like that's one way to attack this game if you think it hits the under. But I think the Chiefs passing attack is the easiest one. I did try to figure out, like, man, is Worthy a sneaky play on this? It's like, it's so hard to get there, man. It's so hard to look at him compared to Watson or Dobbs, who I think are in a better matchup at the same price point and don't have the same ceiling as Jameson Williams as well. So I want to play Worthy, but I can't get there.
I also think he's kind of battling through injury, I think. Like, he was on the injury report actually for most of the season, but last week, and then I don't know if you saw on the broadcast at one point, he threw his helmet because he tweaked his ankle. Like, he feels like he's just kind of gutting it out there. And for a guy like that, like, you need him to be so healthy to be dynamic and all that stuff. Not saying you can't play him. It's just, it's tough to see it, is how I would put it. But in large field, I think he's an interesting dart throw.
Do you think he did something when he ran that 40 and just like lost it all after that?
That was the peak of his NFL career.
But dude, it might be, man. That's what I mean. We're gonna look back in 10 years. Remember that guy who ran that really fast 40 time, John Ross? No. Xavier Worthy. Oh yeah, I remember him. Any takes on this game? I think I want to take Dallas plus 3.5. They're my team right now.
I do think with the 3.5 hook, I would take the Cowboys side.
Gosh, they're a fun team to root for. I will at least say, I know it's different in your world, NFC East, but they're a fun team. It's crazy that these teams almost have the same record, and Dallas's chance of the playoffs are just shot, where the Chiefs have a pretty good probability. At least it's way more likely.
Yeah. According to Next Gen Stats Predictor, the Chiefs have a 54% chance to make the playoffs, the Cowboys at 8%, which just tells you kind of where the NFC is. But these teams both the 10 seed currently, so Chiefs, they got to win this game.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about one more game.
Traditions are a funny thing. They're why we tailgate in the pouring rain, wear full body paint, and refuse to wash that lucky jersey. And just like in football, tradition is what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way, starting with whole corn kernels. No artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Crafted for that perfect crunch. Tostitos. Tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
Lowe's early Black Friday deals are going fast. Don't miss up to 50% off select major appliances. Plus, up to an extra 25% off when you bundle select major appliances. And with Christmas around the corner, you're going to need more string lights, right? Save $4 on GE LED 100 count string lights, now just $5.98. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 12/3. Selection varies by location. Select locations only. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Talking about the AFC North battle, the nightcap game between the Bengals and the Ravens. The Ravens are on a roll right now. They came from the depths of being 1-5, left for dead, and now they're leading the division. It is a cool thing to see. Lamar has not been running the way we want him to, or at least what we're used to in the past. So that does kind of damper a little bit of the expectations of what should we do with this. Like, usually we'd say okay, we're going to play Lamar. We're going to single stack him with Mark Andrews or Zay Flowers. Who are we going to bring it back with on the other side? Despite his price tag, it's not the easiest click. I do think our boy Derrick Henry is a very easy click in this game. And I have a very hard time building a lineup. Like, for instance, when we go head to head, you bet the big dogs in my lineup.
Yeah, he's
I wouldn't even, dude. Don't mess around, because the Bengals have been terrible. 32nd against fantasy running backs, 29th in yards per carry, 29th in yards before contact and after contact. That's very hard to do, by the way, to be that bad before and after contact. So Derrick Henry is going to be a great play. I think you can play him in so many different ways. Like, if you want him to be your flex and you're kind of waiting and dictating roster percentages as the late swap, do that. Play Derrick Henry.
Yep. I think he's a really, really good play. And on this, like, we talked about like some different ways to get leverage and all that stuff. Like, I just think he's a good play. Now, if you're behind entering the late window, understand he will be popular. I think he's popular for good reason. We're finally seeing the, insane workloads and positive game scripts. Like, that's kind of always been the case with Derrick Henry. They're at home. They're favored by a touchdown. Got the highest team total on the slate. So the touchdown equity here is pretty obvious. And when you look at like what the Patriots backs just did, on the surface, it's like, oh, Trayvon Henderson, wasn't great. And like they actually held these guys to reasonable stat lines, but they got stuffed at the goal line, 4 or 5 times in that game. Like the ceiling for the Bengals rush defense was what we saw last week, which was still giving up plenty of yardage. So I think Henry is a great place to start in your lineup. But again, understand he will be very, very popular. So just make sure you're ready to pivot if you need to. I will say too, in large field, like I think Keaton Mitchell's kind of a sneaky dart. If you wanted to get unique in your running back spot, he's getting a little bit more work than I think people realize. And Justice Hill didn't touch the ball at all last week. So if you wanted a cheap kind of sneaky dart throw, Keaton Mitchell's in play. I think you play Keaton Mitchell with Derrick Henry if you think the Ravens just dominate this game. Correlated with the Ravens defense, that sounds interesting to me.
I thought you were talking about Mitchell Tinsley. The Bengals
I also
wide
like
receiver.
Mitchell Tinsley because you know where he went to school.
I don't.
Penn State, baby.
I have no memory of that player playing there.
That's because they didn't really throw the football. It was more of a 1993 offense.
Okay, so I remember John Fitzpatrick. You remember Mitchell Tinsley. That'll be the cool thing we can tell people from this episode.
Yeah, I mean, Tinsley did run as the wide receiver 3 last week. And if you remember the preseason, if you watch any of those games, he kind of balled out in a couple spots. So
yes,
he would be like, I don't know that I can play Yoshibas and Tinsley together personally, but I think Tinsley is a really interesting leverage off of Andre Yoshibas.
I remember the video they posted when he made the team because he like worked his butt off in preseason, and then they posted it and he was crying and stuff. It was really, really good. I look at this game and I go, okay, the popular plays will be Henry. We talked about Mark Andrews. I think he'll be probably the most popular tight end when you factor in price and the matchup. And then I look at the other side. I go, okay, well, people want to play Chase because Higgins is out, or they'll play Yoshibas. Like that's kind of the way I'm seeing this form. And as awesome as Chase has been against the Ravens last year, and when you look at single high safety, which is what the Ravens use, he's awesome. 47% first read target share. Here's the thing that I think people will do, though. They will look at Higgins being out and then double count it for Chase when his splits with Higgins off the field are just exactly the same. Like, we should look at him as the same player, whether Higgins is on or off, and his elevated roster percentage makes me kind of weary a little bit.
I did the exact same thing. I was like, oh, T. Higgins is out. Jamar Chase is obviously going to get 15 targets here. And I mean, maybe he still does. But just like you, I looked at the splits and I was like, oh, wow, it's actually pretty much the same. So I think you will see a lot of double counting by the field and think that you absolutely have to have Jamar Chase. Again, not saying it's a bad play. He projects well. You can fit him, like all those things. I just be careful double counting because I did the same thing you did. The other thing on the Bengals side that we have to remember, Joe Burrow is coming off a legit injury. There is a world that exists where, timing is off. He's not himself. He's not as mobile in the pocket. He takes more sacks than usual and drives are stalling and all this sort of thing. So I think my personal approach is for the Bengals side, I think people will just assume T out, Burrow in. Jamar Chase is clearly going to explode in this game, which again, he could. It's just, I think there's a nice leverage opportunity there in tournaments.
It's funny because the wide receivers that I look at, I mentioned those 5 expensive ones on this slate, Chase, Amon-Ra, Rice, and the Cowboys guys. I'm already looking at Chase and Amon-Ra as 2 players that are like, I think I'm going to come in underweight. And then I'm like, but these are the 2 dudes.
I know.
Like these are the players that you want to play. So Zay Flowers is boring. And yet I think he will get overlooked on this slate. He's in that price range that will get passed over.
Yep.
We talked about the 4K guys. There's nobody in the 5K range. I think he's going to get passed over. So he's interesting in tournaments. Are you planning on stacking up Lamar at all?
I do think that's really interesting. And I actually think one of my favorite ways to play this slate, because think about the recent idea around the Ravens, right? Like Lamar hasn't been himself. The offense hasn't looked good. I mean, to that credit of that notion, they're 18th in success rate offensively since Lamar came back. It hasn't been great, but the Bengals are the get-right spot for everybody. So I think what a lot of people are going to say is, I'll either play Henry or I'll play Lamar, but on a 3-game slate rather, if the Ravens do hit 30 points and they're the team you need, I think playing Lamar with Derrick Henry is one of my favorite ways to attack this slate because you get all the touchdowns, and in our heads, it's hard to wrap our mind around like that being optimal because we think about those two players competing for volume and competing for, touchdowns. But if the Ravens just roll, both guys are likely to be successful. So I like playing them together as a unique angle on the slate. And then if you wanted to include a cheap Bateman in that stack or Mark Andrews or whatever, that's fine too. But yeah, I do have a lot of interest in stacking up Lamar. Even if he's not going to run, I think he's going to be highly efficient here as a passer. We kind of saw that. Remember on that Thursday night game against the Dolphins? He didn't really run, but he was still just ultra efficient from the pocket. I think you could see the same thing here.
Yeah, like we didn't have a problem last week when we were talking up Drake May, Travion Henderson, Hunter Henry as the combination against the Bengals.
Right.
It's like, you could totally play those two together. I think because Henry doesn't profile as a pass catcher, that he has caught 2+ receptions. He has 2+ receptions in 3 straight games. So I like that angle. If you go Lamar, Henry, Marky Mark, and then you pick a cheaper guy like Yoshi Voss or Tinsley, I think that's a way that you could stack up this game and say like one of those receivers catches the touchdown. Chase is not the piece you need. He's too expensive. And that's how you approach this game. I do want to mention Chase Brown because if Samaje Perine is out, you're getting a crazy workload. So it's hard to argue with that. He is more expensive every single week. So we're getting to the point now where it's like, okay, if you get me 15 points, that's fine. But I like on this slate that has 3 elite games, I don't know if he's needed.
Yeah, he's tricky. And I actually kind of think Perine plays. He was full on Monday coming off the ankle issue. And I don't know what the split will be this week, but just for context, in the 3 games prior to Perine being injured, Chase Brown only averaged 13 touches and he was playing 58% of the snaps. In recent weeks, he's been getting literally everything. So I don't know what that would look like, but I think if you're just copying and pasting last week, I think that's probably inaccurate. Maybe he's getting more than he was a month ago, but I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. No love for Sticky G? Sticky Gasicki? Come on, Kyle.
He's fine. He's fine. I like Marky Mark better, but I could see myself play. Like, could you play both of those tight ends together? You
can, and I will.
Are you about to?
You're going to find out, but yes, I am.
Oh, man.
Last year without T. Higgins, he had 7.2 targets per game, caught over 5 passes a game, and had 60 yards a game. Again, you can't necessarily always copy and paste what happened previously to what's going to happen this week, but he ran 64% of his routes in the first game back from the pec injury. He kind of seems like he's their wide receiver 2/3 without T. Higgins. So I think he's a pretty good cheap play on the slate.
3,100.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of fun stuff with 3,100 tight end. I think the Ravens just take care of business at home. I'll take Ravens -7.
I like it.
Dang it.
The same.
Dude, we need to figure this out. We are not supposed to be on the same page.
DFS Battle Royale.
All right, we will finish out this episode with a little old-fashioned Battle Royale, something we used to do on this podcast. The winner of this head-to-head gets to go to Chili's and just shove it in the other person's face. I mean, what I'm going to be doing with my family, we're just laughing. We're posting pictures. It's going to be good. So let's go head-to-head, talk about who we have in Atlanta at quarterback. I have Patrick Mahomes.
I have Lamar Jackson.
Oh, baby. Okay. We're already off to a good start. At running back, I have a combination of Kareem Hunt and Derrick Henry.
I've got Jahmyr Gibbs and Derrick Henry. I'm going full Ravens, baby.
Okay. At wide receiver, I struggled mightily to figure out who in that 4K range. So I have Romeo Doubs, Jameson Williams, and CeeDee Lamb.
Okay, this is where we different a little bit. I have Rashee Rice, and I will say, this is assuming health. If we have something happen, can I change my lineup? Please, Kyle?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
For right now, I have Rashee Rice, Christian Watson. So you have Dobbs, I have Watson, and I do have Jameson Williams at 4,800.
All right, at tight end, I have Mark Andrews.
I mean, imagine not. I've got him.
Okay, So in my flex, that's where I have Rashee Rice.
Okay. In my flex, I have a way better player in Mike Gesicki.
So you're trying to roll out 12 personnel.
I'm going 12 personnel with the expensive running backs.
Okay. And then at defense, I have the Ravens.
I do too. So
okay.
read your top to bottom again.
Okay. So I have Mahomes at quarterback. My running backs are Derrick Henry, Kareem Hunt. Wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, CeeDee Lamb, Jamison Williams. At tight end, I have Mark Andrews. At my flex, I have Rashee Rice, and then the Ravens defense.
All right. I'm going Lamar, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry. At wide receiver, Rashee Rice, Christian Watson, and J-Mo. At tight end, Mark Andrews. My flex is Mike Gesicki, and I also have the Ravens defense.
Gosh, so I might have picked the wrong Packers wide receiver. That's fine. Romeo Doubs, not sexy at all. But I'm glad that we both got J-Mo in there, and we could just cancel each other out, because I would have been way too stressed.
Yeah, I would have been stressed watching him the whole time. But now it doesn't matter.
Yep. If you want to discuss everything about Thanksgiving slate, we have our Discord channel where things are already going back and forth. On the website right now is the Pace of Play article. We will have a full Thanksgiving Day picks article from Betz and Chris Cashel, which will be up on the website as well. And we hope that you and your family have a great Thanksgiving. Betz, sign us off.
Yes, everybody enjoy the 3-game slate. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you and your family. It should be an awesome day. Good luck to all you out there. And then in DraftKings, in our league, I do have a couple contests up. Come play with us. Have some fun, and we'll catch you guys on Friday for the main slate. Have a good week. See you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Traditions are a funny thing. They're why we tailgate in the pouring rain, wear full body paint, and refuse to wash that lucky jersey. And just like in football, tradition is what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way, starting with whole corn kernels. No artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Crafted for that perfect crunch. Tostitos. Tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
When you give gifts, you like to knock them out of the park. Airwick Essential Mist Diffuser's chic design, long-lasting scents, and effortless setup makes it the kind of gift that feels complete the moment it's unwrapped. Perfect for your favorite dinner party host or that friend who loves a cozy night in. Plus, its cordless design means you can easily take this gentle fragrance with you from room to room. Airwick Essential Mist, ready to gift, ready to uplift.